Hi friends, Miss Kristi here, and I am so excited to be together again cooking in the kitchen. Today we are learning how to make homemade mozzarella sticks. With just a few ingredients, a few steps, and a few minutes in our oven, we can learn to make mozzarella sticks right at home. We're gonna have fun making this together today, and I'm so glad you're here. Now, the first step to cooking and working in the kitchen is to wash our hands. While I wash my hands with soap and warm water for at least 20 seconds, let's go over the ingredients and supplies that you'll need to gather to cook along today. The ingredients you need are 2 string cheese, 1 egg, half a cup of breadcrumbs, 1 tablespoon of flour, a pinch of salt and pepper, and 1/4 teaspoon Italian seasoning, which is optional. The supplies you need are a cutting board, baking sheet, oven mitts for safety, 2 small plates, a liquid measuring cup, half a cup dry measuring cup, a pizza cutter, a whisk, 1 tablespoon, a 1/4 teaspoon, a fork, and parchment paper. Okay, great. My hands are clean and your hands are clean. We've gathered our ingredients and supplies, so let's get started making our homemade mozzarella sticks. So this is actually a little fun snack. You get to roll it in things, dunk it in something, and then we pop it in the oven at 425. So with all that, our first step is to preheat our oven to 425 degrees because that's what our mozzarella sticks will cook on. So I'm gonna preheat my oven to 425. All right, while the oven is preheating, let's assemble our mozzarella sticks. So grab one of your plates that you have from your supply list and set it kind of right in front of you. We're gonna measure out some flour on this plate in order to roll our string cheese in them. So put your plate next to you and then grab your tablespoon and your flour. We need 1 tablespoon of flour and we're gonna dump it right on our plate because we end up rolling some string cheese in it. So I've got my flour here and I'm just gonna measure out my 1 tablespoon. This is the bigger one. It says 1 TBSP. 1 tablespoon of flour, kind of right on the plate. And then you can put your flour to the side because you're done with that. And you actually are also done with your tablespoon, so you can put that to the side. So kind of with my flour, I'm just gonna shake it out a little bit. We kind of want it spread out so that we can roll our string cheese. And now just leave that there for a second. The next thing we're gonna do is measure our breadcrumbs. So grab your other plate, put that right in front of you, and grab your breadcrumbs and your half a cup dry measuring cup. So we've got our half a cup, it's 1/2, and then grab your breadcrumbs. Now, a couple things about the breadcrumbs. You can buy breadcrumbs at the store that are already seasoned. You can buy them plain. Or if you don't have breadcrumbs from the store, I actually just used a slice of bread. So you can take a slice of bread, pop it in your blender for a few seconds, and you can make your own breadcrumbs, which is what I did because I didn't have any from the store. So with this, we need a half a cup of whatever type of breadcrumbs you choose to use. So take your half a cup dry measuring cup and you're just going to kind of measure out a half a cup. If you get a little bit more, definitely not a big deal because we'll only use what our string cheese kind of gathers and nothing else. So half a cup. Oh, that was perfect. And then dump that onto your plate. These are kind of gonna be, this is where we're gonna be rolling our string cheese. And you can set those breadcrumbs to the side in your measuring cup because we're done with that. Again, kind of just shake it out here. And because I use just bread from my house, I want to season this a little bit. Now, if you buy breadcrumbs and they already have a seasoning, you can skip this part. Or if you bought plain breadcrumbs and you want to add a little bit of flavor to our mozzarella sticks, this is what we're going to do. Grab your salt and pepper, and we're just gonna do a pinch of it. So I'm actually gonna measure out a little bit and then pinch it just because I don't wanna stick my fingers in my salt shaker. So I'm just gonna grab my 1/4 teaspoon that we talked about in the supply list. I'm gonna dump it in my hand, just a little bit. and then grab a pinch and just sprinkle it on your breadcrumbs. Now, if you make this again and you realize you want more salt, next time you make it, just add a little bit more, but just like a pinch or two of salt, and then you're done with that. Same thing with the pepper. I'm going to just measure out with my 1/4 teaspoon. I won't actually use all of that because that would be too much pepper. I'm just gonna dump some in my hand. And then grab a pinch and just sprinkle it in. So we're just we're seasoning our breadcrumbs because these are plain and I want to give my mozzarella sticks a little bit of flavor. So we did a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. You can set those to the side. Now, with your 1/4 teaspoon that we just used, or you can grab yours, 1/4 TSP, the small one, I'm gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of Italian seasonings. I like that flavoring. I like my mozzarella sticks to have a little bit of an Italian seasoning flavor, so that's why I'm adding it to my breadcrumbs now. Like I just said though, if your breadcrumbs are already seasoned, you can skip this part. If you don't like the flavor of Italian seasoning, you can skip this part. When you cook for yourself, in the kitchen, you get to make those decisions. Cooking can be messy and that is okay. All right, so I've grabbed my Italian seasoning and my 1/4 teaspoon, I scooped out a teaspoon, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of seasoning, and I'm just going to dump it right onto my breadcrumbs. All of the seasoning has gone into our breadcrumbs. Our flour is just plain, so we're not doing anything with that. So just kind of make sure you're putting it on the right plate. Let me move this out of the way. All right. Next up, we need to crack an egg. And actually, grab your whisk real quick and kind of mix that in just a little bit. That way, our seasoning is kind of mixed together. So if you seasoned your breadcrumbs, you can grab your whisk and kind of just slowly mix it around. There. You can move that over a little bit just so you give yourself some room. You're gonna wanna grab your liquid measuring cup now and put it right in front of you. And we're going to crack 1 egg into this. If you get a shell in here, it's not that big of a deal because we can fish it out. We're not gonna dump this into anything. We're actually gonna leave it in here when we use it. So I'm just cracking an egg carefully into my liquid measuring cup. And then take your whisk and you want to mix this together. Kind of break the yolk and then whisk it. I've said this in the past, if your whisk does not fit into your liquid measuring cup, you can always do this with a fork. I find it easier with a whisk, so that's what I'm doing. But if you want to do a fork, you can do that. As long as you get this egg mixed together and the yolk broken, that's the goal. All right, you can set your whisk aside because we are done with that. I'm just gonna move this up a little bit away from me because we now need to cut our string cheese. So that's the next step in this snack. Grab your 2 string cheese, and I'm just gonna unwrap mine real quick. All right, so we have 2 string cheese, and then you need your pizza cutter. I find it easier to cut things like this with a pizza cutter because you can roll back and forth. If you don't have a pizza cutter, you don't want to use a pizza cutter, you could always just use a knife. I just think it's a little bit easier this way. So I'm going to take my pizza cutter and I'm just gonna cut this right in half. So we're gonna have it the long way, cut it in half. This snack will make 4 mozzarella sticks. So 2 string cheese become 4 mozzarella sticks. So I cut 1 in half, now I'm gonna cut the other in half. I'm done with my pizza cutter, so I can set that to the side. And now comes the fun part where we get to assemble these and just have a little bit of fun. And patience with ourselves is also important. Put your baking sheet next to you. So you can kind of see mine is here. I have my baking sheet. I have my parchment paper on top. The parchment paper is optional. It just helps with cleanup. We are melting cheese in the oven, so sometimes it kind of comes out of our breadcrumbs. So the parchment paper just makes it so it doesn't stick to the pan. So I'm putting my baking sheet right next to me. And now I'm gonna move my flour closer, my egg, and you have your breadcrumbs. So 3 things, flour, egg, breadcrumbs. That's our little assembly line. And I'm also gonna grab the fork that we talked about in our supply list and have that ready. This is how we make our mozzarella sticks. take one of your string cheese and you are going to just roll it in flour. Kind of make sure you get the ends. This is gonna help the eggs stick a little bit better, okay? You have to be okay with your fingers getting a little bit messy today because that is gonna happen. We've rolled in flour. Now I'm gonna take my fork and just kind of stab it in the middle. And now you're gonna dunk it into your egg. This is what helps the breadcrumbs stick to it. All right, so I've dunked it into my egg. And now the most important part is burying it in breadcrumbs. We wanna get our entire string cheese covered in breadcrumbs, because wherever you don't have a breadcrumb, cheese is gonna kind of leak out of the string cheese, or of our mozzarella sticks. So put it into your plate of breadcrumbs, take the fork off, and you just kind of wanna bury it. Bury it with breadcrumbs. The ends I found were the most important part because that's where the cheese likes to start to kind of leak out. So the best you can, you want to get each string cheese buried and covered in breadcrumbs because this is the coating of our mozzarella stick as it goes in the ovens. And then I just carefully put it onto our sheet. And I don't want to really grab the ends. I'm just gonna kind of grab the middle. Like I said, the ends are the important part where you want it to stay covered in breadcrumbs. And then I just put it on my baking sheet. And that's what we're gonna do 4 times. So we roll it in flour, get the ends. Okay. And I'm gonna take my fork, pierce it in the middle, and then dunk it into your egg. This is why I think this is a fun snack to make because you have a little assembling line of ingredients. All right, once it's dunked in the egg, then you just go into your breadcrumbs and roll it around and bury it. Cover it in your breadcrumbs. And this is fun too. So when you make these, if you like different types of seasonings, you can add whatever seasoning that you like to your breadcrumbs, and then it's gonna give it a little bit of different flavor. So maybe you like kind of spicy and you add some, I don't know, like red pepper flakes. These are the choices you can make as you try and make these again and again and just try different flavor combinations. All right, so that one looks good. Right onto my baking sheet. 2 more. We roll. Just kind of get it covered. Grab my fork. Dunk it in the egg. And then into the breadcrumbs. And if for some reason when you're doing this, if you run out of breadcrumbs, you can always measure a little bit more. For mine, I usually end up with extra breadcrumbs, which is okay. I'd rather have extra than not enough, but. All right, so we're gonna bury it, bury it. This is the most important part, I think. So if you're gonna have any patience, let it be with this step right here because you really do wanna get all of your string cheese covered, or else your mozzarella stick is gonna end up a little bit flat and the cheese is gonna melt out. But that's okay because I've had that happen and it still tastes really good. So if your mozzarella stick ends up a little bit flat and not super round like a regular mozzarella stick, that's all right. One thing I do wanna show you is if you get a part of your mozzarella stick that's not really getting breadcrumbs stuck to it, you can dunk your fork in the egg. The egg is kind of like the glue. So you can dunk your fork into the egg and then kind of just paint it onto that part and bury it with breadcrumbs again. So I've had to do that a couple times where I just kind of take some egg, pretend it's glue, and get the parts of the string cheese that are not having breadcrumbs stick very well, and you can kind of just then push your breadcrumbs onto it. And like I said, you know what? If it doesn't end up perfect, I'm okay with that. All right, last one. Roll it in flour. This is an important part because this is what helps make the eggs stick to your string cheese. So we roll it in flour. Stab it with our fork, dunk it in egg. And then I'm just gonna spread this out a little bit so I've got a good spot to bury my string cheese onto the last plate. And cover it up. And I just want to make sure these ends get covered, because I've made it a couple times where the ends were not so covered in breadcrumbs, and that's where it starts to fall out a little bit. But we'll see how these ones turn out. All right, we have our 4 mozzarella sticks on our baking sheet, so I'm gonna kind of move this away because we're done with that. Now they just need to cook in our oven for 12 minutes. That's all they need. If you go a little bit longer than that, I found that they do really start to melt. So at 12 minutes, the string cheese still keeps its shape and the breadcrumbs get crunchy. So I'm going to set a 12-minute timer and put these in the oven for 12 minutes. When our timer goes off, we will talk about getting them out and letting them cool. I got my little timer here. I've got 12 minutes set. All right, in the oven they go. Okay, great, this is exciting. My 12-minute timer just went off, so now I need to get them out of the oven and put them on the counter where they can cool for about 2 minutes. So make sure you have like an oven mitt down or a pot holder or like my cutting board I can put that on top of. So I'm gonna turn off my oven, put my oven mitts on for safety, and carefully take them out and let them cool for 2 minutes. All right, my friends, my mozzarella sticks have cooled for about 2 minutes. Again, this part is just to make sure the pan's not hot to touch, that you don't want to burn yourself when you grab your mozzarella stick. But now I'm just going to grab a plate and carefully take off our mozzarella sticks that we've created and put them on our plate. And I think for the most part they turned out pretty good. Now you can kind of see some of them got a little bit flat, so that would be where maybe the ends weren't covered a ton with our breadcrumbs, and then the cheese starts to kind of seep out a little bit. So that's where these ones look a little bit different. So these ones had more breadcrumbs on the side, kept that shape. But again, they don't have to be perfect. They're gonna taste so good anyways. So if yours end up a little bit flat, it is perfectly okay. I promise you they're gonna taste good. So I do hope you try and make these, or try and make them again. And when you do, let me know how it goes. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you have any questions. I love getting to hear from you. You can even send me a picture of how your mozzarella sticks turned out. I would love to get to see them. And maybe we'll get to share it on next week's episode. Now, speaking of next week, on next week's episode, which is episode 27, we are learning how to make a Rice Krispie Treat. Yum! The great thing about this treat is it only takes 45 seconds in the microwave. We use everything and put it into one bowl, and we end up with a Rice Krispie Treat that's the perfect size for ourselves. In order to cook along and make this Rice Krispie Treat, these are the ingredients that you'll need to have in your kitchen for next week. Half a tablespoon of butter, 3/4 cup of mini marshmallows, and 3/4 cup of Rice Krispie cereal. Well, friends, our time together today is almost over. I do hope you've enjoyed learning how to make these homemade mozzarella sticks. I know I had fun, and I already can't wait to cook together again next time. But before you say goodbye to this episode, make sure to click subscribe if you haven't already. You just have to click the little picture of me in the corner. That way you don't miss next week's episode. It'll be out on Friday, and I'll see you then. Bye, friends.